Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'd like to say a warm welcome to those who are with us this morning, and thank you very much for taking the time to listen to a wonderful speaker that we have lined up for you. My name, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alia, and I will be your MC for today. I'm also the program director for this creative leadership series. So now it's in its second iteration. This is a collaboration between IKRAM Australia, Pertubuhan Pemuda Agama Malaysia, Kafi Centre, Education Malaysia Australia, and MASCA New South Wales. Now, the aim of our webinar is actually to provide knowledge and skills to youth leaders to solve problems in their communities and organizations. And we are doing this by inviting speakers like Dr. Munirah, who are themselves community or youth leaders with solid experience in community service. So our creative leadership series this time has a special theme. It's called the Fearless Women Edition, a bit of feminist vibe there. Because after male predominant first season, we decided to line up only women speakers this time. So I am pleased to introduce to all of you today Dr. Siti Munirah Ibrahim, who is a family medicine specialist and palliative care doctor currently working in Malaysia. She has 4 kids. She's an alumnus of Sekolah Siti Puteri, and then she received the opportunity to study overseas. She completed her medical degree from the University of Glasgow and trained to be a family medicine specialist with the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK and also UITM in Malaysia. While working in England, she was actually one of the pioneers in a campaign to abolish a surcharge that was imposed on migrant doctors working in the UK. It was quite burdensome for all those involved. So she agreed to be featured in newspapers, which is something not everyone would have been brave enough to do so. As you know, fame is not something that we appreciate these days because it's a bit scary. So using her voice for this meaningful change, her efforts paid off when the surcharge was finally abolished earlier this year. So this made life easier for thousands of immigrant healthcare professionals. Career-wise, it's a very remarkable resume, but she is just as accomplished in community service. She's an active member of Pertubuhan IKRAM Malaysia, and she's on the committee of Majlis Perundingan Wanita Rahmah under Yayasan Dakwah Islam Malaysia. And since March this year, she's been involved in Project Wawasan Rakyat by leading several fundraising projects during the lockdown period. And she has also collaborated with Pertubuhan Agama Malaysia, apparently, because when I talk to them, they know you. Okay, so there will be a Q&A session at the end, everybody. So feel free to write them in the chat box at any time during the talk, and you can click the round circle to mark it as a question. It'll turn red and be flagged for me. So without further ado, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I would like to invite Dr. Munirah to take the mic.
Okay, Jazakillah. Thank you so much, Alia, for the kind introduction. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum to everyone attending. I can't see anyone else, but it's nice to be with you on this morning, both here in Malaysia and over there in Australia. Before we start, I guess maybe just a little, I would say, discrepancy to the titles. When I saw the poster and I saw Fearless Woman Edition, I thought it's probably a little bit inaccurate because actually it was very fearful. But inshallah. So today. I'm hoping so. Alia has kindly introduced to everyone a little bit about this, the maybe slight history behind the immigration health surcharge in the UK that I was involved in. But I think, I'm sure everybody here, I'm very sure that everybody are making changes in their own ways, be it big or small, in every sphere of their life. So, I don't think I'm here to really, dictate anything, but rather just share my experience. And hopefully, if there's anything that you can take home today from my sharing, then, if it was benefit other people, then that would make me happy. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. So I plan to just, share a few experiences that I have been through that maybe, reflects using our voices for change and And yeah, then we'll have some questions at the end. So I'll be mindful of the time, hoping that, hopefully I'll be able to learn from everyone here as well. So I'm going to share the screen now. Just let me know if there's any problems. Okay, so using our voice for change. Yeah. So first of all, I'm sure all of us have something that becomes our motivation in life. Yeah. So these are mine. As you can see, these are my 4 children, and I am training them from young to be superheroes. Nah, just kidding. So basically, you can all be superheroes in our own ways, but they basically motivate me every day to be the best version of who I am, inshallah. And on the right here, on the most right, is my mother. She is my pillar of strength. Very jolly, happy-go-lucky woman. She's a pediatrician. So she's my rock, but at the same time, funnily, she's the most anxious person when I start giving talks everywhere. So she always tells me, don't tell me beforehand, tell me afterwards when you've done it, so that I'm not, anxious beforehand. So that's my mom. Beside her is my supervisor, my educational supervisor, Dr. Qureshi, who basically supported me all throughout my training in the UK for the 5 years that I was there. So this was my mom. We visited her, Dr. Qureshi's house when she came to the UK to visit me. So the next slide, this is my passion. So I found my passion at Rotherham Hospice when I was doing one of my rotations in the UK, part of my GP training. Basically fell in love with palliative care, fell in love with hospice, and vowed to go back there after I finished training. They're still waiting for me. In fact, they just offered me a job recently, but I said maybe it's not the time just yet. And so I'm doing the same thing now, alhamdulillah, in Kasih Hospice, which is based in PJ. And these are the pictures at the bottom. So this is our little and bright team of doctors and nurses and Kasih team, basically. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you a few stories, and I said these are just sharing, and I'm sure some of you have done even bigger things than what Alia has mentioned, but yeah, let's just share some and see if there's anything that we can take away. So this is a smaller scale thing. So I just wanted to share. So there was one time in Port Dickson where we went there for a day conference, and then I went to the surau to pray and realized that, first of all, the area for the wudu was not covered. So, as a woman, that's very tricky to take wudu in an area that's not properly covered. It was like exposed to the door. And then the other thing was the barrier between the male and female section had holes in them. So it's very pretty, but not very good for, covering your aurat. So I thought, oh gosh, this is not very convenient. So gave feedback to the desk. And what happened was a couple of days later, I got a call from the manager of the place and said, he was very thankful. Apparently he was a foreigner, very thankful for the feedback because he had no idea that was, wrong in any way, and offered to give us a free stay at the resort because of that feedback. So I thought, well, we didn't actually get to go, sadly, but so he made changes to the prayer room. And then IKEA opened in Sheffield when I was there doing my GP training. And when we went there, in the UK, similar to maybe in some parts of Australia, where there's in winter time, the prayer times are very short because of the short days, and sometimes when you're there for a few hours, you may struggle to do your prayer because of those short times. And then the other thing I noticed was the cutlery was so dirty, like it wasn't washed properly. They always had stains on them. So I wrote a long email to the administration saying, could we possibly have a look at the cutleries? I'm not sure they're washed properly. And also, is it possible to have prayer room for Muslims who wish to do their prayer while they're at IKEA, even just, a small room? And I didn't hear from them. So I thought, well, never mind. I've given my feedback. But then a couple of weeks later, I noticed that the cutleries were significantly cleaner, no more dirt marks on them. And suddenly there was a prayer room, 2 prayer rooms, in fact, male and female, makeshift, but really proper prayer rooms that were designated for Muslim prayers. So, alhamdulillah, I mean, obviously, when I did these things, I didn't think that, there was maybe anybody would look at it, but I just thought, well, why not voice it out, give feedback, and alhamdulillah, they were taken into consideration. So, on smaller scale things, there's so many things that we can do, actually, just give feedback. Sometimes people don't know about it, or people are not aware that, these are our requirements, especially in countries where, maybe, other people are not so aware about our Muslim requirements, but even so in Malaysia, with anything really. So yeah, just give feedback. Okay, moving on to maybe a more medium platform. So this was during the year of 2018. Or maybe 17 going on to 18. So I was going through, it was after my palliative care rotation. So I was all, happy and fuzzy and warm from the palliative care rotation, but obviously sad to go. And then I went into my pediatric rotation. So this was based at the hospital, Rotherham Hospital. And there were significant staff shortages. So there were meant to be 9 doctors and there were only 6. And out of those 6, only 2 of us were full-time doctors. The rest were part-time. So over there, it's very common for people to work part-time, mostly 50%, because of family commitments or health commitments or other work commitments. And so at this time, I had just come from part-time into full-time training because of financial circumstances. So imagine just 2 full-time doctors, the other are part-time, and we are short of 3 full-time doctors. It was horrendous. Basically, we were struggling every day to meet the requirements of our patients and the demands of work. And to add on to that, we had really inefficient rota coordinators. I mean, they were lovely people, but they were just not doing their work very well. And so we kept going, but it was to the extent that, the coordinators were not planning to cover the absences, as in the empty rota slots. So they weren't getting the locums in to cover the slots. So we'd be coming to work every day, in a sort of anxiety, thinking, who has to stay back today to cover an empty slot? And when you're working part-time at 50%, covering an empty slot maybe means push you to maybe 60, 70%. But if you're already working full-time, doing extra is just, close to impossible. So it started to take a toll on us. I could see my friends getting really stressed. We were getting ill and I was struggling. I had 4 young children to look after, training to go through. I was supposed to have a big exam that year. And basically we were all really stretching ourselves. Now, a lot of this was to do with money. So they were trying to save money by not recruiting locums from outside because they're more expensive. If they recruit us, it was cheaper. So yeah, it was a bit cheeky really, but it wasn't on. And if any of you were aware of the Dr. Bawa Garba case in the UK, which was a big medical case basically that involved a very senior pediatric trainee, and she was basically scapegoated for failure in the system because it was unsafe working conditions. Boy died, and actually there were many faults in the system, but everybody put the blame on her. And many doctors, thousands of doctors fought for her because we all knew that we could be in that situation on any given day. And we were afraid of this. We didn't want that same thing to happen to any one of us. So we needed enough doctors, we needed enough rest, we needed to be working efficiently. Essentially, it was a system failure. Now, at that point, honestly, I was just at the point of quitting. It was so hard. I just couldn't manage. I couldn't study. I could hardly, I was struggling to go to work. And I was thinking, I really can't go on like this. I think I may have to quit. But then I sat there thinking, if I do quit, what do I get? Okay, I'm currently the sole breadwinner, so that's not great. We won't have any money. We have to go back to Malaysia. And I go back with nothing. So I'm in the midst of my training, trying to get my GP specialist training. Would it all be worth it in the end? It didn't seem a nice option, even though it was very tempting to do at the time. Do I drown? I felt like I was drowning already. Could I continue drowning for the next 6 months? No, because I'm already drowning. So there was actually no choice. It was either that or fight. And, until then, I always was the, sort of the quieter one, sitting in the back bench, just quietly getting through every rotation, not making any fuss, trying to not create any trouble, not to talk too much. But at that point, it was really, drown or fight, situation. So I then made a big decision. I spoke to my educational supervisor, Dr. Qureshi, and said, I don't think I can do this. This is, stretching me too much. I'm going to have to defer my exams this year. I can't take them. And I'm going to try and fight for for change. So she was very supportive, and so I started sitting down with the consultants, with the rota coordinators, having meetings, looking at the rota, seeing how is there any way we can change the rota to suit how many numbers we have. Started getting in touch with the locums that come and seeing if they could cover those empty slots that we had in advance. Basically, I was becoming the rota coordinator rather than, the designated rota coordinators and being unpaid for it. But, that was the only way to survive, making sure that these slots were filled in advance, making sure that we all knew what sort of jobs we had to come to do on the day a week in advance. So it took a lot of hard work, a lot of trying to bargain things with the administration, with the consultants, and trying to make them see that this is unacceptable. There are ways to rectify it. There are ways to attend to it, but obviously it costs money, and you have to fork out the money. There's no negotiation here, and obviously all the other doctors supported this, and we managed to push it through. So alhamdulillah, and through that as well, it takes quite a lot of skills. It's not just about what I mentioned. It's also about communication, obviously, with the rota coordinators, trying to help them or suggest new ways of working with them, introducing to them things like Google Docs, where we could all monitor the rota online. And sometimes for people who are not used to this, it's quite a big change for them to move on to more from more conservative ways to newer ways of working. So alhamdulillah, we managed to survive the 6 months, and I'm hoping that after that, things change for the other trainees to come, and that they are more aware and more sensitive to the requirements of doctors. Okay, so that was what happened during my pediatrics rotation. Okay, so in my final year of GP training, this was when I had to take 2 big exams because I deferred the exam in the second year. So a lot of stress was on my shoulders. Now, because I mentioned earlier, I started off part-time training, and then I went on to full-time. So therefore, my training was stretched a bit more. So it's meant to be 3 years, and I had to stretch it to 4 years. And therefore, I had to pay that for that final year, £5,400, which is equivalent to about 30,000 ringgit for a 1-year visa for myself and my family. And obviously that's a lot of money. I was a sole breadwinner. And during that time, there was talk in the news about the government wanting to increase this, what was so-called the immigration health surcharge. Okay, so this is a surcharge. So when we want to work in the UK, similar to other countries as well, you need a visa. Okay, so you have to pay for the visa for yourself and for your family members. Now, during our 5-year stay there, this is when all the new immigration health surcharge started. So they initially started at £50, and then they increased it to £200 per person, and then they wanted to increase it to £400 per person. Now, they thought this was a brilliant idea, because it's like, okay, there are foreigners coming into our country, they should pay for the health service. It sounded brilliant, it sounded logical, but if you look at the technicalities, which is, say us as the doctors who actually work for the NHS, the National Health Service, which is the public health system, we are working to help keep it running. We are also paying taxes, same as everybody else, and those taxes should pay for the healthcare system already, and it's a high amount of tax. And we also pay national insurance, same as everybody else. So we are paying similar to what other people are paying, and yet we are also having to pay extra for this immigration health surcharge. So something wasn't quite right there. They are making money more out of us, when at the same time there are not enough doctors and nurses and medical staff all throughout the board. And we knew this because we are the one who are stretched on the ground. So everything didn't patch up, because to me, the government needs us, the healthcare system needs us, and yet the Home Office, which are people involved in controlling the borders and who comes in and out, are making money out of people who need to come in and people who need to stay. So it's a hindrance to people staying, and I've just paid £5,400, and I needed to come up in 9 months another £6,600 for the next year I was going to stay and work, if I were to stay and work. So it was just what's the word? I just couldn't accept it, basically, because it was unfair. It was very taxing on all of us who are, most of us have young families. Maybe an extra £200 for one person isn't much, but when you times that, £400 times, six, that's a lot of money. So I started to speak up about it. And initially, I just wanted to share it with, my colleagues, my training directors, my supervisor, just started to tell them about this issue, and when each and every person heard about it, they were shocked. They were like, we had no idea. We don't even know what this immigration health surcharge is. And we had no idea that doctors like yourself who come from abroad and work here have to go through one, trouble, and two, money to actually be able to work. And that's ridiculous. And I kept getting the same feedback from every person I talked to. So then I realized there's a big loophole here. So here we are, those of us on tier 2 visas, paying loads and loads of money every single year to try and, complete our training, continue serving the healthcare system. And yet, the people who are actually in the system don't even know that we are having to do this. So I felt that there was a big gap there that actually was an opportunity to create awareness. Because, at that point in time, in the current, well, even now, I would say, political situation in the UK, there were some groups of people who were, not keen for people from abroad to come into the country. And obviously, there are political groups who then use this to their advantage, saying, well, that's why we should increase the immigration health surcharge, we stop people from coming in. But when you're in the service, you realize that we need more people. There's no two ways about it. We are really, really short of staff. We need more people to stay. We need more people to come in and help, the healthcare system. So when I realized that huge gap, I thought, we really need to create awareness here, because if it's only the international doctors who are talking, they will just basically say behind our backs, well, I'm sorry, if you don't pay the money, then unfortunately you can't stay, and the people who can pay that money and come into the country, so we'll take the people who can pay. So it was a bit like, beggars can't be choosers kind of attitude, and that made me even more angry about it. This just is ridiculous. If, say, it was the other way, where they had too many doctors, too many staff, and they needed to cut down on international staff, then I think that would be fair. You would have to put a system in place to be able to sift through who needs to stay and who needs to go. But the situation was opposite. So I likened it to like a huge ship, where everybody on the ship is trying to keep this ship afloat, and it was struggling. And yet nobody realized that somebody had actually drilled a big hole at the bottom of the ship, and everything, the water was just coming in and we were drowning. And we needed people to realize that this hole is there, because otherwise, we would all actually just sink. And so when I realized this, I started to talk to people higher up. Talk to the British Medical Association people who were meant to be our representatives. They knew about it, they empathized, but they basically said, well, we're trying to make changes, but we're not sure where this is heading. I tried to speak to the head of the Royal College of General Practitioners at the time, and said, is there anything that the Royal College can do to help, doctors like myself about this IHS issue? And she said, okay, yes, write to me and we'll see what we can do. Not sure whether it was going to go anywhere, but did it anyway. And then one day during a trainee conference in Rotherham, this young doctor, Dr. Julia Grace, came and basically talked about a new movement she had started called Every Doctor. So she basically was telling about this new movement she had started. She's a psychiatric trainee, and she basically took time out from her job because she felt that doctors weren't well represented by the bodies that are already around. So she decided to start this movement. So I spoke to her about it. I spoke up and said, well, Julia, do you know about this issue with, those of us on visas and this immigration health surcharge? And again, she wasn't aware. And so I told her about it, ended up crying about it in front of everyone. But she listened. She empathized. And the difference was that she actually took it on to help us fight for it. So, over the next couple of weeks, we were, I was telling her, giving her the details, and basically Julia managed to get this into the Guardian. So she spoke to the Guardian. They agreed to accept the story and said basically, will you talk to us about it? So at this point, it was a very scary moment because I've never done anything like this in my life. And, being a Muslim, female, brown, hijabi, it sort of just ticked all the wrong boxes if you are anti all these kinds of people, which there were plenty of them around at that time, especially with the current political climate. So I was thinking, what am I doing here? Is this really, the right thing to do? But at that point where I was at the end of my training, I was very angry, passionately felt strongly about this. I didn't feel that it was fair for this to go on. I mean, I'm sure there are many people, thousands of other doctors who are facing the same thing, but probably can't speak up about it because, very fortunately for us as Malaysians, we have Malaysia to go back to. And, it's a lovely country with a good healthcare system and there's job opportunities. But that's not the same for other doctors who have migrated, maybe given up their whole life to go to the UK with their families and start a new life there. They may not have something to go back to. So they do not want to put their life or their families on the line. They probably won't want to talk about it. And so I'm thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, the worst thing that can happen is probably they kick me out of the country and I go back to Malaysia. That's not such a bad thing. So, and then I just, obviously checked my intentions that this is to help rectify a system that is obviously unfair, and just try and create awareness and hopefully, benefit somebody. I didn't think it would benefit me, even though I hope so, but it was too close to the time I had a few months left of my visa and I needed to decide whether I was staying and going, but hopefully it would benefit, the many others. And we found out there were at that point about 80,000 doctors on visas at the time. So there's a lot of people being, unfairly treated with this surcharge. So we made it into the Guardian, and so this was the a snapshot of the paper article, and basically it was just my account of it, and it was part of a bigger article about the whole details of the immigration health surcharge. So that was a very scary moment. The weeks after that, I felt like going into a shell and hoping nobody would recognize me. But it got the snowball rolling. And so, people started sharing about it, people become more aware about it. And the most important thing was that we needed the local doctors, we needed the local people, the British people to know that this was going on, because when they fight for it, then something will change. If we fight for it, like I said before, people will just turn a deaf ear and say, well, tough luck, but that's the rules. So, we were so Julia was part of a big, Facebook group gathering many doctors throughout the country, and people were just shocked to know about this. So, we managed to get the awareness started. Okay. And then nothing much happened. Obviously, nothing happens overnight. But on the ground, things were rolling. Anyway, I went, had my exams, and Alhamdulillah passed. And by that time, for several reasons, including this, decided to come back to Malaysia. And then at one point in the first few months I came back, ITV News then contacted me from the UK and said they wanted to interview me for a TV documentary they were doing. So then they sent a representative here to interview me on that. And then few months down the line, Julia then managed to get some MPs, UK MPs, to come together for an online meeting. So this was during the COVID time. We had an online meeting, and I was invited to share my experience of the immigration health surcharge with the members of parliament at the time. So the snowball was definitely getting bigger. We were reaching higher places. We were making more people aware and concerned about what's going on, and that this needed to change. And then COVID happened. So COVID happened, and because the UK health system was already stretched, COVID, how many lives it took in the UK, much different to what happened in Malaysia, really, it took its toll on the system, and they finally realized that we can't afford to lose our doctors. We need more doctors to come in. We need more doctors to support the system. And the IHS is stopping it. Is a hindrance. It's not helping. And so, subhanAllah, during Ramadan, I woke up one morning and, people were just sending me this news from the UK that, they decided to abolish the IHS. And that was one of the happiest days of my life. Like, it was, when you pass in a big exam or something, I was just so joyful. I felt like had it not been COVID, I would be out there on the streets hugging everybody I see, because it was such, wonderful news. And, even though I didn't, benefit directly from it, but I'm just so, so happy that it could help so many people, there in the UK. So this is Julia Grace highlighting this, sort of this story in the large Facebook group that we are part of. And yeah, this was a year later, basically. So yeah, what we did a year ago, that really had no idea how it was going to turn out. And Alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, it's all from Allah. And so now they are really looking into the IHS and seeing how they can rectify this system to help improve working conditions and the rules for international doctors staying and also coming in to serve the NHS. So that was a story about that. So basically, I'm trying to put some points down in terms of what we can do when we want to be the voice for change. Yeah. Whether it's small scale, medium scale, big scale. First of all, you have to identify the issue. What is the issue that you are facing? What is the problem? And then you have to understand the system that surrounds it. Yeah, why it has come to that situation, where the loopholes are, what can be done. And then you need to also know the best method to address it. So, for instance, if you talk about the immigration health surcharge, I could, write on Facebook and try and voice my anger there, but it probably wouldn't really do much, yeah? Or I could keep talking to people about it, but again, there's a very small scale thing. So we needed to get something that was a high impact, that would create the awareness that we needed. And for something like, the IKEA story, so who do you talk to give feedback? So you have to know what is the best method for that particular problem to do it in the most efficient way. The next thing is, what is important is you need to know your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, for instance, I'm a person who can talk. If you let me talk, I probably won't stop talking. But I'm not that good at maybe what do you call it, writing things down. Yeah, keeping track of things in a sort of clerical manner. That would be my weakness. So when you know your strengths and weaknesses, you can then use that to your advantage and know what not to do. So the other way of looking at strengths and weaknesses is, for instance, I mentioned earlier, in the UK, where I'm a minority, yeah, Muslim, female, brown, hijabi, that can be a weakness if you look at it a certain way. So I have to be aware of that as a weakness. It's not a weakness actually, but to some people it is. And when you know that society can use that as a weakness, you just have to be aware what you're doing and the sensitivities that it can create. Yeah. But I also had strengths. So, for instance, I was involved in charity work in the Rotherham Hospice, so doing charity work for them, trying to raise money for them, involved in their fundraising efforts. I was also involved in community work within the Malaysian Society in Sheffield. In my sort of colleagues that were doing my GP training with me, I had my support system there. I had my supervisor who supported me, my educational supervisor, my clinical supervisor. So, and my patients, because from my training, I realized that my patients are one of my feedback mechanisms to say that I'm doing a good job. I am a good doctor. They do want me there. They do want me to stay on. And that is a strength, yeah? So when you know what you have, you can use that to your advantage. And when you know your weaknesses, to sort of manage that, the sensitivities of the society around you, of the systems that is present. It's really important because you don't want to take the wrong step and, for it to go the wrong way. And then this leads on to the next point, which is form your support network. So when you do something, when you are voicing for change, you are essentially going against the tide, you are going against the norm, and you really need support. It's a really hard thing to do. It's quite a scary thing to do. And so you need to have that support ready, to keep you going at the times when it's hard, at the times when you doubt yourself, at the times when it's maybe not going so great. And to have that in place for you when you need it. And always, always, always focus your intention. So, despite it being hard at times, at the end of the day, and very fearful, thinking, oh gosh, will somebody ever find out? Do I get kicked out now before I even finish my exams or my training? But at the end of the day, the intention was to help other people as well, help myself if I could. But if it helps other people, then we need to keep going, because if nobody talks about this, nobody will know about it. So somebody has to do it. So the intention must always be right. And obviously all along the way, the importance of istikhara, so that, Allah guides us in every step, in everything we do, in everything we say, in every decision that we make. And also the importance of istishara. So always discussed, with my supervisors, with Julia, with the important people around me, to know that, am I doing the right thing? What else do I need to do? What else can be done? What are people saying? What's the feedback we are getting? And where to go from here. So this always, this communication is really important. So those are the things that I felt, are crucial to be aware of when you want to be a voice for change at any level. Now, change only happens when enough people speak up in the same voice. So at any, especially if you're thinking of bigger change, you need to be more people to be aware about it and saying the same thing, pushing for the same thing. And only then, we can actually effectively make a change. And when we say be the voice, you don't necessarily have to be the one talking. We are being the voice by bringing the same message. Yeah. So you either be the voice by saying it out, you either help the voice by spreading the message, making more people aware about it, passing links, use different platforms. I mean, especially in this day and age, we've got all the social media platforms. We can use anything that is at our disposal to spread that message. Make sure that we reach, the pockets of society that needs to know about it, the important people, targeting the right people that needs to know to make this change. And also be that support. If it's somebody else doing the work, if it's another group of people doing the work, there's a lot you can do to just provide support and feedback. I felt that at that time, just small words of motivation meant a lot to me, because I was always self-doubting, thinking, my God, what have I done? Did I do the right thing? Will this create more trouble than actually solve anything? Will other people get in trouble for this? Will I get in trouble for this? And always, questioning, because it is a big thing to do. It is a risky thing to do. But then when people feedback to you, thinking, oh, great City, over there I was known as City. This is great City, you're doing really good work here. We had no idea about this. Even random people who I didn't know in the doctor's network, like, thinking, oh yes, City, I had a similar trainee in your same position. This really should be abolished. We had no idea this is how difficult it is for all, you doctors on visas. So that just gave me the strength that I needed to say, all right, I'm doing the right thing. Inshallah, this is helping to create awareness and hopefully change at some point. So it's really important to be that feedback as well. So if you're not, if you see groups or people advocating for change, the least you could do is just provide that support and feedback, which is really, really helpful to those involved. Okay, so never underestimate. So I mean, what I may have been sharing are quite big scale things, but even when I did it, I didn't think it as a big scale thing. It was just something I felt so passionate about. It was out of desperation as well, and sometimes I think desperation and stress actually can push us to levels that we have we can't imagine that we can do, but actually inshallah, with Allah's help, we can actually make a change just by voicing out. And never underestimate that one drop that we create, because one drop can create a ripple, and it's the same ripples that create tsunamis. So be that drop. Just start making that change, voice it out, talk about it. And I think looking at the context of being abroad, being a minority in a Western countries, Australia, UK, similarities there. Actually speaking up is not just about big things. I found that so one of the things that I try to do in my workplace every year is try and make the most of, like, our for instance, Ramadan or Eid or any sort of Muslim, just to create awareness, because as we know, in Western countries, a lot of Islamophobia going on. People have, some people have the wrong impression of us. But the only way to break these barriers is actually to talk about it, to be that person where people can ask things. So it's really funny because where I worked at the hospice, where everybody was lovely, amazing, and I thought, I am, like, obviously a Muslim, wearing my big tudung and my baggy clothes. And then one day we had this discussion because one of the patient was a Muslim and she wanted certain things for her end of life, and it started a discussion among the staff. So I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity. So I said, if any of you want to ask me anything about Islam, I know sometimes it's difficult to ask, feel free to ask me. So one of the things the nurses asked, which I thought was, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, basically she said, "So Siti, are you Muslim?" And I was like, yes, but I was just thinking, oh my goodness, all this while I thought this was really obvious, but the first thing she asked me is, "Are you Muslim?" So I guess the thing is talk, because maybe we assume other people know, maybe we think it's pretty obvious, but people don't know, and maybe people generally do want to ask about things and really want to know about us, and the least we can do is create those bridges, yeah. So and because of that, I gained the trust of people around me by building those bridges. So always talking to them about Islam, or even but on other things as well. On a daily communication basis, you build good what do you call it, friendships with everybody around you, and inshallah that will serve a good purpose. When you are trying to do something bigger, you have already gained the trust of those around, so they know you're doing something good. They know you as the good person you are, the qualities that you have, the principles you hold on to, and therefore whatever you say after that, or whatever you're fighting for, there's a higher chance that they will support it too, because they know you as the person you are, and not necessarily just the sudden message that you want to bring. So this is important, on a daily basis, us being as Muslims, to be, always carry that good character, always carry that good message, and be excellent and ihsan in what we do, in our careers, in our studies, and in our words and actions. Yeah. So and always the question that I ask when I'm ever in that situation where I feel so strongly about something, and somebody needs to speak up about it, I will always ask myself, if not me, then who? If not us, then who? And and then there becomes this big responsibility and heaviness on your shoulders, thinking, we need to do something, we need to speak up about it, we need to start making that change. So inshallah, I think we're now at just entering 40 minutes, so hopefully keeping to time. That's the end of my presentation, my sharing rather. So let me just switch this off, and maybe we can take some questions. Hope I didn't bore anyone, but yeah.
Oh no, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. Okay, so alhamdulillah, thank you for that. That was very interesting. And we have a few questions, actually more than a few. So I'll just read them out for you. So the first one's from Shifa. She said, how did you do risk assessment regarding your actions, especially because it involves government, big things that could be quite risky. So how did you assess the risk before you voiced out?
Risk assessment. Yeah, I guess this was maybe part of the point of, the strengths and weaknesses thing. And knowing that I was going up against something pretty big, it's like the UK government. and like I said, this was a very sensitive issue, actually, because in that political climate, there was a big group of people who were anti-immigration, anti anything foreign. And so speaking up about this was definitely risky, which is why I sort of started on the ground first, I knew I was up against something big. So I started on the ground first by talking just to the people around me, to my colleagues, to like I said, to my supervisors, to just people I knew, to patients even, just starting to find out what people thought of it. And interestingly, one of the people I spoke to was he was a British doctor but Indian in origin. And but I mean, he's been there. He's already a PR, and we were out on a weekend doctor duty, what's it called, out of hours doctor. So we're in the car, and I just thought I'd bring up the topic and see what they thought. And basically he just turned around and said to me, well, tough luck, that's what you've got to pay for. And I said, oh, okay. Why do you think that? Since I'm also paying tax, and I'm also paying the health surcharge. So the driver was a British Caucasian. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just trying to paint the picture here. So, and he said, well, you can't get the same rights as us, because we are citizens, and, we are paying tax, and yes, we are paying free, but you've got to pay extra because you're not citizens. And I was like sitting there back of the car, half regretting asking, but thinking, okay,
Yeah.
this is good. I need to know this. Yeah, I need to know that, these are what people think, that they do feel that it's fair. Actually, there are some people who feel that it's fair, even though they are actually, foreign themselves at one point, but they also feel the same thing. And the driver then, when the doctor walked out, he said, well, doc, just look at it this way. You pay that amount of money, but then after that, you're going to be earning big bucks. Just pay back. I was just like, okay, not that big, but okay. But it's really important information to me. Like, okay, this is what people think, and I think it's important to be realistic, to know exactly what people think, because if you're in your own kind of like la la land, then you then don't assess, you don't know the risk. But like I said, I just felt so strongly about it. But at that point, I knew that I was trying to think, what was the worst thing that can happen to me? I just hope I didn't get like caught and put in prison. But I hope that the worst thing was that they just kicked me out of the country, lah, which is hopefully not such a bad thing. But yes, I did have to assess that risk, because say if I was in the midst of my training, maybe I wouldn't have spoken up about it just yet, because I needed to finish. I couldn't take that risk then. So you have to be aware of this, because it is risky business doing something as big as that. But equally, you need to get that support system in place. And the one reason why I felt strong enough to bring that message was because of Julia and Every Doctor. I knew that if I had their support, I wouldn't be on my own. They are fighting for me. They are helping me, giving me a voice, giving me a platform to have a voice. And that is something that I wouldn't have had on my own, despite however, friends or people support me around me. But that platform was important. The fact that she got the main newspaper to talk about this, the fact that she was ready to support it at every angle, that gave me strength. And you have to, that's why the groundwork is pretty important there. Yes, you need to do the risk assessment. You need to know what you're up against, basically, and you need to know what people are thinking about it as well.
And you're talking about being a minority before, and I noticed that Julie is white. She's a white doctor. So apparently she's using her privilege as a white doctor, British doctor, to help minorities such as yourself in UK. And I think what Shifa has pointed out also, she said the voicing out culture is more prominent in Western countries, and we think it's easier because of the privileged people helping us. But what about in our own country, where we are actually the people who have privilege? Maybe we don't think that we should change the status quo, but shouldn't we also, become like Julie and help those without voices?
Absolutely. I feel very strongly about that too. Yes, more sensitive areas here. Yeah, once we approach the Malaysian
election.
But yes. Yes, political agendas here. Okay, so going back to Julia and the UK system, it's really important to be that person. Actually, had it not been for Julia, I think we really wouldn't have achieved what Alhamdulillah we achieved today. And that was one of that was the first thing that she championed as part of Every Doctor. I was one of the few, I think the first 50 people who joined Every Doctor, maybe the first 20. And that was our first cause, our first sort of fight, basically. And then now they are fighting for, like, so many things, and it's amazing to see. But I really respect her, because I really cannot do what she does. I'm fighting for this one thing alone is enough to, like, really bog me down. But somebody like her, who speaks up for all the minority groups, whether it be women doctors, during the COVID, it was BAMI, black and what do you call it, minority ethnic groups, all sorts of things. And I'm really amazed. But it's really needing somebody like that, who is empathic towards the plight of minorities, that will help give them a voice. And it's absolutely right. We have to know the system, because at the end of the day, otherwise you are, shouting and shouting and shouting. At the end of the day, you're just shouting to a blank wall. And the efforts will, you'll get the pahala, but the outcome may not be there. Okay, now coming to Malaysia, it's absolutely the same thing, and we have the bigger responsibility in Malaysia in a sense, because we are that majority group. And I think, one of the things that I appreciate from having been abroad and being a minority group is I completely understand how it is to be a minority. And I think it's really important that those of us who have been chosen to given this opportunity to be in other cultures, to have that experience, come back and change that narrative in Malaysia. And I think we, as I'm not sure who our viewers are, but say as Muslim, Malay, who are the predominant race and religion in Malaysia, if we fail, if we come back and we treat others the way that people mistreat us abroad, I really see that as a calamity, basically, because we have not managed to change it. What benefit did we go from? Did we get, just rather than getting a degree from abroad, if we have not managed to change our mindset and our hearts about these things that matter, about humanity? And I think we take things for granted here in Malaysia because we are the majority, and we actually don't realize that there is a lot of systemic racism and racism in our everyday life that we maybe don't even realize, things that we say that are like generalize other people. Say, for instance, Cina memang suka menipu, like the way we don't like people saying Malay pemalas, but Cina memang penipu, or kita panggil keling, or kita panggil Bangla. All these things are racist remarks, but sometimes it's so normalized that we don't realize that are racist. And they lead to other things, that may just be a remark, but they lead to actually a whole systemic racism. And definitely we need to change this narrative in Malaysia. We need more, the likes of us from all races and religions, to come together and make that change. Whatever we feel passionate about, whatever we feel that needs to change, start being that voice.
Amira is asking you, were you always a person with a brave personality? If yes, how is that an important factor in voicing out what is needed? If no, what did you do to change that?
Okay. Okay, so I spent nearly half my life in the UK, growing up with my parents doing their specialty training over there. So I went there. I went to the UK when I was 5, came back when I was 11. Knew no Malay when I came back, like my children now. And then had my secondary school here, did A-levels here, and then went back to the UK to do my degree. Housemanship, came back to Malaysia to work for 4 years, for 2.5 years, and then went back to the UK to do my specialist training, and now back in Malaysia. So I've been back and forth. So I actually consider myself half Malay, half Malaysian, and half British, actually. But I believe that we are all, every one of us, are molded by our experiences in life. Yeah. So I think that makes me quite a vocal person in a Malaysian context. So I'm quite loud for a Malaysian, but I'm still quiet for a British. So I always feel a little bit stuck in between, actually. And sometimes it does, it's not always an advantage. In Malaysia especially, it's not always accepted to be loud. It's not always accepted to be vocal. It's not always accepted to be somebody who wants to change things, even if it's for the better. But it's also important to know that. And I learned that the hard way without going into the details. But you need to know the system around you. You need to know how So in Malaysia, it's very hierarchical. Yeah, people are very particular about seniority, about how long you've been in the service, about who you are in the system, about your title, your gelaran. The gelaran must be correct. Whereas in the UK, people don't really care. You call your consultant just by first name. They also drive an old banger, bawa, handbag koya. It's not an issue. So you have to know the what we call the wakil, the environment around you. So the question was I always brave? I don't know actually. I like I told you, actually it was a very scary time for me. So I didn't feel particularly brave at the time. But I try to manage that as well, meaning that, okay, I mean, at those times of anxiety, I think through my experiences in life, I've learned to be able to be aware of my mental state. Yeah. So if I feel really anxious about something, I try to address it first. So what do I need to do to make myself less anxious about this, more confident about it? What do I need to do? And then that then gives you, well, not the bravery, that you need to do it. So I think it's being sensitive to the system around you, because like for instance in Malaysia, like I said, I know like through experience that voicing out can actually lead you to down dangerous paths. And you need to know this. In the UK, maybe it's a more acceptable thing to do. People voice out about things all the time, about everything. In fact, in the UK, it's opposite. If you don't voice out, you get scolded. Like for instance, as part of my training, if you don't give feedback, you'll get marked down. In Malaysia, if you give feedback, you may get in trouble. Okay, so you have to know that. Yeah, you have to know that. You have to know that because being brave has to have, I think it has to be intellectually brave. Yeah, you have to make the right move at the right time, in the right with the right support in that system. So that's why always, you have to learn about the system around you. Not that I was really clever about it. No, I just felt strongly about it, and I think that's what pushed me to just do it. Yeah.
Being brave is not equal to being reckless. I think you should do your homework before.
Yes, because it can be reckless too. Yeah.
Okay, another question is, did you get any negative feedback from voicing out or fighting for your issues? Did anyone say anything horrible to your face, and how did you handle that?
Well, the incident in the car, that was a bit uncomfortable, but I needed to hear it. I even in the political scenario in Malaysia, I have one group that is actually an extended family group that do not share the same political views as me. And actually, it really hurts to be in that group because it really, it really annoys and angers me, but I stay in it because I need to know what people are thinking. Because when you are fighting for something, you need to know what the other side are thinking, because that is part of the battle. You need to be aware. But actually, I don't think I really got anybody saying terrible things to my face, but possibly because I chose to be in the groups that didn't say horrible things to my face.
Yes, a bubble.
But maybe, because sometimes you need that protective mechanism as well, because it can really kill you. Undue criticism or negative criticism is not necessarily something you need. You can get constructive criticism. So people did question me. They did ask, why have you not got a visa yet? You've been here for many years, and why can't you do this, or why can't you do that? Or there were people like questioning it in a kind way, thinking, we all had to do that, just pay for it. And so they didn't criticize, but they did question. So and also the silence was a question as well, because sometimes when you say something and nobody says anything, you're thinking, okay, people don't agree with me here, they're not saying anything, but they don't agree either. So I think, but I then, that's why I felt it was important, the istisharah part. So always checking myself, always, discussing with others. Am I doing the right thing here? Did I do anything wrong? Is there anything I could have improved? What else can I do? And I felt for me, that was important, because I needed to know that I was doing the best I can. It's not necessarily always correct, and sometimes you don't know what the correct thing to do is. You just have to do it and then wait and see and just brace yourself. And I'm sure that behind the scenes people do say things, like I said, especially with the political climate. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to expose yourself to it if it's not going to be helpful.
Because that sort of thing happens on social media, doesn't it? You get these trolls or people who just intentionally give you bad feedback. So what's your opinion on voicing out on a platform such as social media? Would getting things viral be more advantageous for your campaign or not really?
Malaysia is, I think, can be quite brutal.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that anywhere can be quite brutal, but okay, if we're thinking in the Malaysian context, because I've thought this many times when trying to think of making change here, because you can see how one negative viral post can really kill people.
Yep.
People really use character assassination here, and that's tricky. So you have to know that, and I guess that's why maybe for now I've chosen certain platforms and still contemplating others, because I'm thinking the risk is too much for me. Yeah, maybe not too much for somebody else, maybe not too much for any of you asking the question. So you have to know yourself. Yeah. You have to know the Malaysian what do you call it, scenario as well, because it's interesting in Malaysia. Like, you can, the moment you are viral, you can really say anything and it really works. And even if it will work against the most the highest authority in that field pun takkan be able to lawan this viral person out of nowhere. So yeah, we have to know that as well. So maybe the trick is to get that viral person on your side, then go.
Probably.
So
It's more
yeah,
strategic.
but yeah, yes, you have to know these tactics, because otherwise you could actually, and once you get the wrong side of it, it can really, I feel, if you're not strong enough, it can kill you. So, but I'm not saying that to demotivate. I'm saying that we need to find other ways to, for instance, like maybe my current involvement with Project Wawasan Rakyat, maybe I feel that that's the best platform for me for now to do what I want to do or what I'm passionate about. But that may change. But yeah, you always have to risk assess, definitely. But it doesn't mean all these platforms are there to help us. You have to choose the right one at the right time with the right support.
And it seems that dealing with people in real life is more effective than just spewing out ideas online. Do you think?
Better. Better in what way?
Is it more effective? Isn't it? It reaches more people, gathers more strength.
I think in this day and age, it's parallel. It's parallel. To get that influence online, you need to be making those bonds in real life.
I see. Yeah.
Only then you'll get the influence online. Yeah, because it was those. Even though I guess my circle was very small, but because that the trust that I built with those people and the right people that could bring the message forward was then what pushed the media platform forward. If I'd been talking on social media on my own, it would only reach those around me, whether they understood or not what I was talking about, or whether they agreed. They may have disagreed. But definitely the bonds in real life. I mean, me and Julia are, we only met once, but I think, the bonds that we've created, that, I support everything she does till now. And, we do still keep in touch, and we would fight for each other of the things that we passionately feel about. But yeah, definitely the bonds in real life are the ones that will push the social stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so one last question. It's quite personal. It's from Zawani. She said there was a recent Huffington Post report about shocking Islamophobia in the NHS. Some were taunted by colleagues about bacon and alcohol, especially those who are visibly Muslim. What was your experience working with the NHS? Did you face any Islamophobia?
I mean, this is quite recent, right? This bacon and alcohol thing. So I guess when I was there, I didn't have that specific Islamophobic issue. Islamophobia is rampant in Western countries, and sometimes more obvious from society, especially those who are lack the knowledge of Islam and have a certain view and are very vocal about it. You know, the right wing movements, but equally, when as I said earlier, that I do engage in conversation with my colleagues. So there was one time where I found it very interesting, shocking as well, that I was speaking to a senior pediatrics doctor. So I mean, I regard her as my friend, but she was a senior lah, and she was a lovely person. I trusted her. I loved working with her, and then we started talking about the issues of religion, and then what did I mention to her? It was about, I think it was something to do with the afterlife, that we believe in, and she turned to me and she said, Siti, I can't believe you actually believe in things like that. An intellectual person like you believes in something like that. And I was quite taken aback, trying not to be too shocked, because she basically put my faith together with my intellect, as if, intellectual people cannot think like that. And so that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because even though this person that I really, got along with at work and really, was a lovely person, actually had those views. And and then you start to realize, oh, what are the other people thinking, actually talking about it. But then the more you think about it, it does get you down. And at the end of the day, what does it do really? It doesn't, for me, it's enough to be slightly aware, but not necessarily take it personally. Because I think mostly is people are just not aware and they don't know. They don't know. So I always feel that it's our duty to, again, make those bridges, make people aware. And, at the end of the day, other people are human beings as well. But we need to voice out. If we don't voice out, people will never know. People will always maybe think that we are whatever they think of us. Like the person asking me if I'm Muslim. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that that's not as obvious yet. But when I started exactly, it was, so clearly a hijab. So it wasn't so clear, and but it was good of her to ask, meaning I knew, okay, now I know that I need to say I'm actually Muslim. And if we go back to, for instance, the history of Islam and how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also given the command to preach, to spread the message of Islam. Had Rasulullah just kept it to himself, Islam, the word of Islam would not have spread, change would not have happened. And it's the same to us. We think that it's enough for us to be convinced, but no, we have to talk about it. We have to make other people realize it as well. And I did, a presentation to my hospice colleagues about palliative care in the Muslim patient, because I felt that, well, they were all non-Muslim. I was the only Muslim there. I mean, how would they know about a dying patient if they needed to salat, if they needed to say the shahada, if they needed to face the qiblat? They wouldn't know all this. So I made a presentation and thinking, oh my God, I don't know how this is going to go down. Will people think I'm preaching? Will people get the wrong message? I know one or two faces who were a bit like guarded, but actually, after that, everybody was so thankful. They're like, Siti, we've been treating Muslim patients all this while and we didn't know any of this. And it's like, oh, now we know we can put them in this room because it's already facing the Qibla. Now we know that we can use your pictures of how to take the wudu, which is a basin and a jug. We know that, okay, they have to cover their awrat for male and female is what this is dignity for them. And we know that, before starting them on something like morphine, which will make them drowsy, that they may want to say the shahada first. So, and they were just so thankful. They were like, we just wish somebody would have told us this all this while. So never underestimate talking about things, but use the right platform, have the right manner about it, and create opportunities for discussion. And I think that's all it needs. People who, it's the same in Malaysia, actually, fear towards other races, fear towards other religions. The only reason is because we don't know enough about it. That's why we then use fear as a mechanism to either put other people down or protect ourselves. And at the end of the day, it's actually just the fact that we don't know enough about each other, and so we need to make those bridges.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. I think we'll wrap up for today because there's no more questions. So I want to thank all of you for attending and engaging with us on the topic. And on behalf of Ikram Australia, thank you, Dr. Munirah, for agreeing to talk to us. And I've really learned a lot, to be honest. And one thing that I remember the most from what you've told us today is we should never expect other people to fix the situation for us. So can't complain if we didn't voice out in the first place. Okay, so Jazakillahu khairan kathira, Doctor. And for my lovely audience, we have talks by amazing speakers just like Dr. Munirah, scheduled every 2 weeks from today. So stay tuned and I hope to see you again next time, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Warahmatullah.